dignitaries and members of the public keep on streaming at Nyayo Stadium. And so we expect this particular event is set to start around 7. Honorable Raila Odinga is set to make his way at Nyayo Stadium at around 6:30. So we'll be here pitching camp and bringing to you live events as they unfold. Back to you, Safin.
Thank you, Gladys Mungai, for that comprehensive reporting from for the official starting of that particular event that will see the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya launch its manifesto. And of course, from information we are receiving is that today at around 6 tentatively, that's when the former premier, who is the presidential flag bearer of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya, accompanied by his running mate Martha Karua, are going to make their way there. But that also is something that it's a wait and see. But in studio, we will just be discussing some of the things that have shaped his vision for the country ahead of the 2022 general election. And of course, just earlier, before we even begin dissecting the Raila contract with Kenyans, allow me to just bring my guests into the conversation. Once again, I'm hosting Dr. Churchill Saoke, a political analyst, and of course, Milly Lwanga, governance expert. I'd just like us to quickly just comment on the IEBC development there by Wafula Chebukati that has now seen Walter Mongare, one of the aspirants who had been cleared to vie for this particular race. His application has been revoked on grounds that, according to the latest information we have from our reporter on the ground, is that he was disqualified for not having a degree. And of course, also information we have is that he was supposed to be meeting the chair of the commission this afternoon. He didn't. So what do you think about this? Is there any impact that this is going to have, especially on how the process has been conducted and even some of the complaints that have been raised? Let me start with you, Churchill.
Yes, I think that when the revocation, of course, when you look at the chairman of IEBC, the only shortcomings I have about it is why is it coming now? Because you see, they took the aspirant through some process. So we would have expected that some of these documents should have been verified during that process, even before he was declared qualified. Because you see, one of the things that IEBC right now really have to manage is the public confidence. And anything that makes the public to lose confidence with them would have an impact in people's trust into the process. So I think that they may have done it in good faith, but even moving forward, they need to be conscious about each and everything that they're doing, because you see, they don't want, you should not reach a point where you're showing Kenyans that you are making a step forward and then making another step backwards. It dents onto the confidence and the trust that the public has on the commission.
What do you think, Milly, about this about turn on the clearance of Walter Mongare?
I think it's pretty odd. And I say this because I think that one of the requirements, if I recall correctly, that you need to present as a candidate is, other than your degree, you must have a letter confirming from the ministry, the relevant ministry, confirming that it is from a recognized university, you know, and such like stuff that accompanies the documents that you present to IEBC. So if that was missing, then if you went to some university that maybe is not recognized, if it was missing, then they would not have cleared him then. We've seen people who have come beforehand with some shortcomings and they've been sent back and given an opportunity to rectify. Now, another concern from my perspective is the fact that he was expected to present himself at 2 p.m. today. That was information that was let out today. This is a gentleman who had been cleared. He probably had hit the campaign trail, we would assume. So if he did not make it by 2, is that ground enough to disqualify him? There are quite a number of questions that you'd want to ask, because the treatment of candidates should be fair and not just it should also be seen to be fair on the face of it. So I think, I'm sure that Chebukati, being the seasoned lawyer that he is, probably has answers, good answers to this, but it would be useful if he made those answers more public, so that the discussion would not be derailed, because right now people have many questions as to why suddenly you would be disqualifying somebody that you had qualified. And again, it seems quite brash to say that you were expected at 2 and you did not come, therefore you are disqualified. You know, when the person's initial date that he had been given, he attended and presented himself on the date that had been scheduled for his attendance. And this is a new date, a new development. So it will be interesting to see how that unfolds.
Yeah, just as a general comment before we finalize this and go to Nyayo and focus on what is happening there. I mean, you know, technicalities such as lack of a degree, and some who presented themselves without the threshold of a list of supporters that is required by IEBC. The list was initially about 50 people who had been shortlisted, or those who had expressed interest to run as president, and it has zeroed down to 4. What does this tell us about the seriousness that some of these aspirants take this process?
Well, I think that some of the aspirants, we can say, take the process seriously, but these are people who are applying to be chief executive officers of the country Kenya. So it means that the process has to be rigorous enough. And I think that the requirements that have been put that are stringent are good enough to ensure that, when we are investing, remember we are investing money into the logistics of ensuring a free and fair election, And so it will be significant to ensure that those who go into the ballot are people who not only meet the laid down requirements or qualifications for being president of the Republic of Kenya, but also have got the competence to do what it takes. Otherwise, it will be unnecessary to spend billions of shillings into the logistics of organizing an election, which sometimes, if we have so many candidates, you can reach points where you're going to lose the credibility of the process. Because, for example, if you had 47 candidates vying for presidency, the process of counting those votes in itself, you might end up realizing that you sacrifice the credibility of the process at the expense of people who should not have necessarily been approved to be part of the aspirants.
But Millie, do you think some of these aspirants are serious? I mean, you know very well, it's clearly stated even on the IEBC website, the requirements are there, and they've been there for quite a while. You know very well you do not have a degree certificate, or you're having issues, clearing yourself from whatever institution of higher learning you attended, and still you go ahead and apply?
We have a lot of, what do you call them? They're this motivational motivational speeches that go around all the time, and they tell you that, just try. Even if they ask for qualifications of 4 years and you have one, just try, you never know. Maybe that is why
some of them are pushing this.
But really, I think that I'm glad that there's a sifting process, so that at the end of the day we remain with serious people who really want the job.
All right.
And then I think also it is also sending a message even for future elections that, if you want to vie for presidency, you must be serious. That this is serious business. It's not child play. It's not a thing that you are going because you want fame or you want just cheap publicity.
All right. So let's now focus on what is happening at Nyayo Stadium. And at least for Raila Odinga, he's lucky. He has been cleared. Hopefully nothing will change. Going by what, we just heard from IEBC, I mean, we do not know what to expect, but hopefully he has been cleared. So today he's going to launch his manifesto. How important is this day for Raila Odinga, Millie?
It is very important. There are normally those people who are skepticals, the people who are in between there, the ones that the polling data shows as undecided lot, who are waiting to hear more. Leave alone what you're telling us in the rallies. But we want to hear, we want to be swayed more by what you have. And some of these people are people who are quite influential. They may be able to even go out and support maybe organized transport for 1,000 people to come and vote because they believe in you, but they're waiting to see what you have to offer the country. What change, what is your vision? So it's an important thing because it is particularly key for, I think, that group of persons who are waiting for the technical and not the hype of the day and the joy, not the diehard supporters who, it doesn't matter whether you have a manifesto or not, they are there behind you, but there are those who are really waiting to see, and some are quite influential. So it's a good day for him.
So Churchill, we expect a sober event, a sober moment that is going to be a bit technical and heavy on what the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya administration is about?
Yes, absolutely. This is actually an opportunity for people to sober up and reflect keenly on where they want to take the country. And you know, for any leader that wants to lead the country, you must be able to have a vision. And that vision must be infused in people, and so that people can be able to find wings to fly in a manner that, you know, they believe in your dream, they will believe in your vision for the country and your capacity to take this country to a new level. So this is an opportunity that the former Prime Minister and his running mate have got to make people to feel that they want to fly. And what I will call in any normal business setting, that this is an opportunity for him to pitch. He's giving a pitch of what he wants to do for the country, so that people can embrace it, people can also reject it, and also maybe because, you know, he's going to speak in this setting, he's going to speak not as Millie says, not like in the political rally. He's going to speak to people who can reflect deeply on what he's speaking. So he will not come here and speak anything. Remember, those who are looking at him are intellectuals, the diplomatic corps, even people around the world are watching. That, you know, this is a potential president of the country, of the Republic of Kenya. Is this somebody who is going to create an environment where we can do business and invest in?
All right. So this is actually seems like it's going to be quite a big event, going by what we are seeing on our screens there. As you see, supporters of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance already filled up the stadium. You know, it's almost full to capacity. Just a few minutes before the official commencement of that particular event. But of course, inside the stadium, there is a special area that has been set aside for leaders and other invited guests and dignitaries from different spheres of life who are just going to be there to listen to Raila Odinga and as he you know, presents what his agenda for the country is. So you can see there, Kenyans also had a chance to be part and parcel of this. So these are just supporters of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance. So at the end of the day, it seems like it was not an invites-only event. You know, just to also accord the Mwananchi a chance to get to hear and be there for themselves to hear what Raila Odinga has in store for them. But then, Millie, for me, I choose to see this as a critical moment that Kenyans are going to use to hold Raila Odinga and Martha Karua responsible in the future. Because what he is going to say today is the basis upon which Kenyans are going to use to say, okay, you promised us this, but you didn't deliver, or you did deliver, or you did not deliver to the extent that you said you will. Yeah. And
that's very true. And in fact, if he becomes the next president, the person who will be in the minority side in government, what we used to call opposition before, will be keen to remind him. Remember that for a long time under Jubilee One, we kept reminding the government that the children are still waiting for the laptops that you promised them. So these are promises that you make, and people expect that you will do everything within your power to ensure that this is realized. There may be need to derail it because you go and find a government in a certain situation that maybe you did not know, particularly when you're not an insider, the way Raila has not been. He's been a person outside the government, so he will be coming into government for the first time, or officially for the first time. Then he would not have as much information as that may impact perhaps his manifesto. So with that adjustment, we would anticipate that still the key agendas that he has put in his manifesto will be realized. He's been going around telling us many a time that issues of healthcare will be addressed in one way or another. I'm keen to see how that will reflect in his manifesto, and that is something that I'm sure many Kenyans will hold him to account for, because every day we are raising money to bail people out of hospital, one person or the other. You fall sick and you just fear because the bills are astronomical. So it will be good to see that what his manifesto is and to hold him accountable to it. And I hope that it will be available easily and widely.
In a language that is understandable to the common mwananchi. Before we dissect some of the issues that he has been hinting as part of his agenda for the country, what does it take? What does it take, Churchill, for a presidential candidate to come up with a manifesto that is sellable, that meets the aspirations of Kenyans? What's the process ideally supposed to look like?
First, the manifesto is, as Millie says, it's like a social contract between the people and the government. And the election is the way in which governments legitimize themselves and give themselves authority over the people. So it means that for you to come up with a social contract that people can accept, it must speak for the aspirations, what people aspire for. And in speaking for what people aspire for, it must be drawn from some of the struggles that people are going through, or some of the things that people desire. And that's why you will see that people will talk about, if there are issues around high cost of living, they will want to talk about how do you entrench this into the manifesto to bring about ease of what I would call the cost of living being lowered. If people are struggling maybe because of injustice, you bring on board issues. How are you going to open up democratic space for people to have free and be liberal? The other way in which governments and some of these leaders are able to come up with this is looking at what is happening worldwide. What is happening in other jurisdictions.
What has worked elsewhere.
Yes, what has worked in other jurisdictions, and how can we bring them down into our own juris. So these are ways in which they have to look. It is a broad-based thing that has to take a lot of in-depth research from very highly technical people who can interrogate the country from all sectors, economics, the social, the political, and come up with something that is comprehensive, that will not only make the country prosperous, stable, but also secure. Because remember that the whole concept of a government is ensuring that the people are secure in terms of food, they are secure in terms of their physical security, and they are also secure health-wise. So those are the key things that are very significant. The other things now just feed into these key security aspects.
All right, so let's begin to look at some of the things that Raila has been passionate about. And I'd just like to cite something that he said as part of his address during the Azimio La Umoja National Convention at Kasarani International Stadium. This was in December 2021, and it's a narrative that he has kept selling over time during his campaigns. And it was what was baptized to be known as the 10-point agenda for the country. And this 10-point agenda includes quite a number of issues that, if elected president, he plans to do. He considers this as part of the issues that some of the challenges that Kenyans are facing, and has explained how he plans to solve those challenges. One thing that Millie, Raila Odinga said that under his government is going to implement is what he calls the Inua Jamii Pesa Mfukoni. You've seen this talk about 6,000 monthly stipend. There's been a lot of controversies around it and how practical it is and whether this is what we need. But according to Raila Odinga, he says that it is a social protection program that will deliver 6,000 per month to 2 million people who are the country's most needy. It's not a handout, but an investment and a foundation for a new transformational value chain. So 6,000 per month for the most vulnerable in the society. What do you think about this first?
I think it's an excellent idea. I say this because it has been tried in the country. There's been the cash transfer program that has been supported by different donors in Kenya and has been running for quite some time. We know that there's the money that has been going to the elderly that was then picked up by the government of Kenya. And if I remember correctly, I think it was about 4,000 shillings, and it's been running for almost a decade now and has been sustained. And one of the things, I was fortunate enough to have been part of a team that was evaluating the impact of that cash transfer program. And one of the things that the families who had benefited from it spoke about was the fact that it was different from being given maize, which is what traditionally we would do. When people were hungry, we would go and give them maize, you know, give them some food to feed themselves. Because when you got this money, if perhaps you had a little maize, you would be able to have a balanced diet. It was increasing the health status of the family, because you didn't just have the bulk maize without anything to go with it. We had seen pictures and we had seen documentaries of children eating boiled maize in the morning, boiled maize in the evening, and ugali without anything substantial later on at night. So now they were able to balance that out. There were stories of women who had been able to use this money after accumulating it over time to buy a goat that subsequently now became an economic enterprise for the family. So it is true that it is not just, I think if it is implemented well, it's not just something that would be a handout, but it is something that would help you get out of that deep rut and that deep hole. Because we know many other times when sometimes all you need is a lifting hand, a hand that will get you out of that hole for you to be able to have that dignity as a human being, to be able to fend for yourself. And not all of us can afford the Fuliza rates, and not all of us can afford the M-Pesa rates. So if the government can give you this money that will not put you further into the rut, all the better. Yes.
But still, Churchill, 6,000 per month, you know, the cash transfer targets the vulnerable in the society, and some of them are people who are advanced in age. Some are maybe people who have some form of disability, and they may not be able to be active in income generation. But this one seems like it's open to people who even can be able to be active in income generation, get into income generating activities, start a business here, there. Going this direction, some may think it's actually sort of like giving them fish, as opposed to teaching them how to fish. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that, first of all, when I look at the figures, we are having about 6,000 times around 2 million, at least. That is around 12 billion a month. It's also quite a huge chunk of investment that we have to admit that the key thing here would be, how do you use 12 billion a month, not only to give handouts, but to use it as an economic stimulus that can promote people to get themselves into aspects of economic growth or contributing into economic growth. And my thinking is that, the manner in which this will be implemented, and if it is implemented from the perspective that you are given 6,000 not just to eat it, but to use it to do something.
Then to invest it somewhere.
To invest so that it becomes like an economic stimulus package. So that will help in the sustainability, and it will also, in the long run, the government will be able to see its significance and will separate it from what happens to like the ones that is given to the old guys. But then the other thing, when you look at aspects of dependencies, there is a very huge dependency. And for example, those who work in Nairobi and have got dependents down in the village, they will actually tell you that the dependency rate is so huge to an extent that some of them cannot be able to engage into aspects of what they call hustling, or what they'll call other alternative ways of income generation or diversifying your income, because a lot of the money is going back into what? Into the dependent. So some of these kind of transfers could actually help they will help the people who are already working. So the monies that they would have sent could be used, even them, they could also begin engaging into their business themselves. So it will have a huge impact. It will have a huge impact. But then the other key thing that these kind of things come with is the mechanism of doing it. Because how are you going to identify these people? That's one thing. The other thing is, there were instances in the transfers, especially for the old, the one that was targeting the old guys, where you were finding down in the communities, the chiefs and the sub-chiefs were actually manipulating those lists. So those are the kind of micro things that can actually affect the impact of this kind of initiative.
So it's well intended, but now the implementation part is where now is the exam is. That's where the exam is, whether it's going to succeed or not.
Definitely, but the beauty, like I say, is that it's something that has already been tried in Kenya. There's already adequate data, I think, to begin with, as to who are the vulnerable persons and communities or families that you target in a place. And I don't think that it would move away from this, but I do see where there would be a problem, because if the other cash transfer programs are still ongoing, then one family could be at potential of being
a beneficiary of even 4 different
cash transfers. Yeah. So it becomes a full-time job just being at home supported. So yes, those are some of the risks, that the potential risks. It's important that it is managed properly and that it's not manipulated. But then again, the only way that you can do this is to ensure that there are checks and balances, because you will still find people who will try to manipulate the system. So it is just a matter of trying to put checks and continuous monitoring. Exactly. And I hope that civil society will be alive to this. I hope they're listening to the manifestos that will be unleashed, or unveiled by different presidential candidates. And then they will be keen to follow up and ensure that they monitor and see whether the persons who really should benefit are the ones who are being targeted.
All right.
And I like the fact that if they have focused it on promoting the local and small scale businesses, then it will add a lot of value. It will add a lot of value. If those become conditions, then it moves away from being just a mere cash handout.
A handout.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at this number, 2 million, and I'm looking at the entire Kenya's population. And, there are millions of people right now, even as you're having this conversation, who are struggling to even feed their families. Well, it is good intended that, such initiatives would help and lift the burden off their shoulders. One would be curious to know, what is it that is causing such a crisis in our country? What do you think is the main problem? Let's go back to the root cause. Look at our situation in our Kenyan context. For some of these politicians who are coming up with policies right now, if you were to inform them of the areas to look, the issues to address, that would push us to this extent where Kenyans now need, such social protection programs, what is it that would cause us to not even be able to afford feeding our families, Chachi?
I think that when you look at any society, the first thing that any country must always that each and every person in the society needs. All right? When you look at some of the advanced countries that are now moving into the new age of industrialization and technological advancement, they have already dealt with the key issues that the population need. The issues around food security, health, and the physical security of the population. So I think when we go down into the basics and invest into the things that people need most, and the government says that, when an individual wakes up, he needs to eat. Even if he does not have a phone, he needs to eat. Even if he does not have a car, he needs to eat. And we focus on that and ensure each and every person eats, then we will have reached great milestones. And one of the ways in which we do this is ensuring that the country is able to produce its own food and does not depend on food that comes from outside of the country. So this for me, I think, is the beginning point where we have lost it, and that's why you find there are communities in this country that when you see them on the news, they are still talking about hunger. They'll not tell you they are talking about they don't have internet, or they don't have computers, or they don't have tractors. They will tell you that they are hungry,
which is very unfortunate. Is it a case of missed priorities? Like Churchill is saying.
Yes, and I think that one of the things we've also had as a problem in this country is poor planning. At one point, we even had a specific department in government that was dedicated to planning. And when you plan with the resources that you have and with the resources you anticipate to have, so that even increasingly you will target and steer education to a certain direction. There is no point of producing a lot of doctors if that's not what the country needs. There's no point of producing a lot of lawyers if that's not what you need, and then find yourself in a situation where you have to import this other labor from elsewhere because you can't manage it. So planning, looking at the resources that you have and the resources that you'll require, gearing your educational system, to ensure that you churn out that kind of, so that those people will not be, if you don't have white-collar jobs, then why churn out a lot of white-collar graduates? Maybe you should churn out a lot of more blue-collar. That kind of planning would have helped us, if we sustained it more, would have helped us be able to produce people into the sector who would come out and they would be looking for things that they would do that would create employment, so that within the East African region, because we are now a community, people would be coming to Kenya to work and go back home to live, rather than create a society where most of us come out and you're saying, now what next? I need someone to guide me into the next phase of my life.
Yeah, true.
And that contributes to the hunger that we see everywhere.
And we'll talk about jobs and that as we continue. But what you see there is the guests already filling up the venue of the event. These include leaders, and just other guests who have been invited to be part and parcel of this event. And you can see there the stage is set. That is where Raila Odinga is going to take that moment that he's going to explain what his vision for the country is when he arrives at the Nyayo National Stadium. But outside this particular venue, we have the stadium packed with Kenyans who've come just to show their solidarity for the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance. And we've been seeing their traditional dancers, carrying the flag of Friends of Raila there, ushering in the guests as they come in, the leaders as they come in, and just setting the mood of celebration for this particular coalition. So today we'll see them tell the country what their agenda is, and of course, what is it that makes them the best team, why they should be voted in when we get to the 9th of August this particular year. So we are anticipating the arrival of Raila Odinga and his running mate, and of course other leaders also any minute from now. But you can see, it's already a beehive of activities as the traditional dancers there are setting the mood. And of course also earlier we saw entertainment from legendary musicians, one of them being Helen Tawali, just to set the mood of this particular event, to show that it is quite a celebratory mood that the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya is expressing today, coming just a day after their presidential flag bearer was cleared by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Later on, he held a series of rallies, and of course today he's going to tell Kenyans what he has in store for them, should they decide or should they make that decision to vote him in as the 5th president. But of course, one of the things that he has been talking about is what he calls Kazi kwa Wote, which is about securing the welfare of people by generating avenues for productivity through job creation programs. And he has really been passionate about investing in the Jua Kali sector and other macro and microeconomic stimulation schemes. And looking at this, Churchill, just sort of both borrow from what the Kenya Kwanza has been saying and what the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya has been saying, creating opportunities for jobs, investing in projects that sort of like create jobs for those who are jobless, and not the One Kenya Alliance termed it the labor-intensive projects, not the capital-intensive projects. What do you think about this, and why is this important also?
For me, I think the jua kali sector is a key sector that the country, it's good that both the coalitions are seeing its significance. Because I think that this is one of the sectors that has not been exploited much by the country over the years. When you look at some of the products that come from the jua kali sector, they are top-notch products. They are top-notch products that could actually help to improve the productivity of this country, in the sense that these, when you look at some of the products that these people are able to make, the quality actually sort of matches those that even are imported from South Africa and from different parts of the world. The furniture, you look at the metalwork and things like that. Right? When you go into some of the areas, like for example in Kariobangi, and look at the kind of works that some of those people are doing there, it is huge work that has got high quality, that if exploited can be able to produce products which would create a niche, a market niche of made in Kenya, not just for our country, but even for the region. So I think that it is something very good that both coalitions are seeing the sense of investing in the jua kali sector. The thing that will be important for some of these is how to incorporate aspects of business skills amongst them, because some of one of the key problems that the jua kali sector faces is the informalness of the way they do their business, to the extent that they make their products and display them there for sale. They are not proactive enough on how they can be able to look for the market. And now this is now where you find the brokers now take advantage of them. And the brokers come and they know where the market is, and they come and buy those products very cheaply and go and sell. So in the long run, you realize that you, the producer, you, the person who is putting your mind, putting your skills into producing some of these products, you don't see their value. So I think bringing some formal aspect of how they do their businesses through trainings would be very significant. So that kind of investment would be very good. And even apart from that, the whole concept of creating an entrepreneurial culture for them that is holistic, not just providing them with the money, but also the market. Government can also help in helping them get market locally and regionally.
All right, so just so I can stay on this particular subject, Millie, recently in May, I believe this was the month when Raila Odinga was talking about his plan for the jua kali sector, and he sort of talked about some of the vulnerabilities that people in this sector go through, and sometimes they are lured into accepting peanuts by what even Churchill has cited there, because of their lack of skill, their lack of, not lack of skill, their lack of knowledge on how business is run and how things are done. I mean, if you look at that particular sector, what do you think are some of the things that makes us as a country not to tap into the opportunity that it offers?
It's true that there's a lot of tapping in that we can do in that sector. Remember when COVID was here, and we had these people being showcased by the president, the young man who was making, and people went and really bought those seats, the seat that you could push in and turn out, things that we didn't imagine.
Even the bed.
And the bed. People did things people used to be very, very fascinated by getting things from abroad. But here we realize that we have skills and capabilities amongst our jua kali sector, and that they can make things that are very, very beautiful and that we can use. And I'm sure one of the things that many Kenyans will remember was the talk of the gentleman who was to get the tender and the frustration that he met when he was to get that big tender because of all those bottlenecks that you have to face for clearance and what. So you end up getting Daktari here as a third person
to help you to sail through the system.
Yes, and he tells you
has to get his cut.
At 35% cut.
Yes, true.
So it's true that if we made things easier and much more flexible without making a joke of the entire process, but having things in place, systems in place that would check, but ensure that the process is available, easily available and easily open to all persons to participate with the benefit of the skill that you have. Focus being on you being the skill provider, and not focus being on who is able to bring the best technical white paper around that skill that would then be easy for us to take off. But us benefiting and tapping on that skill that you have, then it will ensure that more money goes directly to the person who is offering that skill.
Yeah, true. One of the things that makes this happen is the lack of the academic credentials. And Raila Odinga plans to come up with a policy that he calls the RPL policy, the recognition of prior learning policy that will, more recognize the skills and not buy you out just because you don't have the required academic credentials. Do you think this is going to be a big changer?
Well, it's going to be a big changer in terms of recognizing the informal. But then now the issue is whether these people who are going to be recognized will be able to have capacity to take advantage of it. Because you see, there will have to be a lot of sensitization and training and change of mindsetting of these people, so that they can be able to see that, this is an opportunity for us to formalize our business operations, so that we are not just looking at our businesses in terms of we make today, sell, eat. Tomorrow we come, make, sell, eat, and like that. You have to formalize their business operations and see their businesses futuristically and in a manner that you are running a company. But then the other thing that is significant even also in the whole concept of mindset, which will also help in beefing up that idea of that policy of the RPL, is making Kenyans to change their mindset and thinking on made in Kenya. Because this has been a big problem, where you have a made in Kenya here and a made in China here or a made in Japan here. Even government themselves would most likely not want to go for a made in Kenya. So these policies for them to become work best, there has to be that proactiveness of government being deliberate in making people to think that, made in Kenya is what is best for us and is what we should adopt, so that this Juakali sector can see Kenya as their initial market base. And that is how countries like China or Japan developed, where the government made the people to see that what is made in Kenya or what is made in their countries first is for their country. Once it meets the need of the internal, the country's need, then we can be able to export.
All right. We'll talk more about what this vision that Raila has for the country is as we continue with this particular coverage. But let me just take you back down memory lane when this, coalition unveiled the team that is going to work very closely with Raila Odinga in the implementation of this agenda that he has for the country. And even before he has been elected, or Kenyans have decided whether they're going to elect him or not, he laid out his cabinet and assigned duties to who is going to do what, who is going to be in charge of what. So let's go back to the 17th of May and listen in to what Raila Odinga said with regards to the team that he's going to be working with.
Even as all eyes were trained on Azimio La Umoja presidential candidate Raila Odinga as he unveiled his running mate, there were concerns on what would be left for those who were left out.
I have worked out a program that I believe will make our dreams come true.
In a tactful move, Raila Odinga unveiled his proposed cabinet members in anticipation of a win come August 9th, appointing Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka as chief cabinet secretary.
I have nominated Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka as the Chief Cabinet Secretary with the responsibility to coordinate and supervise functions of the government.
He is mandated to coordinate and supervise functions of the government. However, Kalonzo was missing in action and instead opted to vie for presidency with Andrew Leitipa Sunkuli as his running mate.
For the third arm of government, I nominate Honorable Kenneth Marendi as the Speaker of the Senate.
Raila proposed former National Assembly Kenneth Marende as Speaker of the Senate. A politician himself, Marende defected from Musalia Mudavadi's camp to Democratic Action Party Kenya.
I further nominate Honorable Wycliffe Ambassador Paranya as the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury.
Team is now complete. Ningeomba tu nyinyi wananchi, kutoka leo ndio tumeanza safari yetu ya August 9th. Na hiyo safari tunataka tutembee pamoja.
Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya, a former Minister for Planning, could be back at Treasury as the Cabinet Secretary, trying to balance public debt and economic recovery.
Nimepawa nafasi ya kujiwakilisha katika kinyang'anyiro cha unaibu wa rais wa Raila Amolo Odinga.
The proposed appointment of Mombasa County Governor Ali Hassan Joho was a welcome surprise for the nominee, who took time to share his sentiments. Current Agriculture CS Peter Munya will retain
Baba ongera kwa kumchagua mama wa nguvu, Martha Wangari Karua, ambaye amefanyia nchi kazi miaka mingi, ambaye ako na uzoefu wa kutosha, na ambaye sisi sote tutaunga mkono pamoja na wewe tuweze kushinda uchaguzi ujao.
All right, so that is a story we prepared for you that day when Raila Odinga unveiled his running mate right here in Nairobi. And of course, what you heard there when he was speaking about the Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka, whom on that particular day he assigned the position of Chief Cabinet Secretary should he be elected. And later on, Kalonzo Musyoka, who was missing in action during that particular event, actually, according to the latest information that we have, is that right now he's part and parcel of the Azimio La Umoja One Kenya Alliance, and has since been reclaiming back that particular position of Chief Cabinet Secretary. But just to take you through key highlights of who else was given what role in Raila's cabinet, we have the former National Assembly Speaker Kenneth Marende, who was assigned the position of Speaker. And of course, we also have Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya, who is a former Minister for Planning, and he may just be back at the cabinet, serving under the Treasury docket. And of course, also we have Mombasa County Governor Ali Hassan Joho, who was proposed to be in charge of the Ministry of Lands and Agriculture. CS Peter Munya was proposed to retain his position as the Agriculture Cabinet Secretary under Raila Odinga's government. So this is in the event that he succeeds in his 2022 State House bid. Yes, so this is the team so far, but it's not complete, of course. Should he succeed, I'm sure more names and more roles will be mentioned. But what do you think about, first of all, that bold step of announcing a cabinet even before you elected president? Has it happened before, Chachi?
I think this is a political strategy, because you consider that the people, each and every political interest group are trying to look at each coalition than trying to look which coalition actually has our best interest at heart. So each of these coalitions then have got to portray and express that your interests are those who see who as their leader. If they are nominated for certain specific positions, they'll stick to that coalition. So I think this was the strategy that the former Prime Minister was trying to deploy by nominating specific people so that he can hold certain voting blocks. By those voting blocks seeing that, if we vote the Azimio La Umoja coalition, then our interests are well taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Millie, what do you think about, first of all, the team, that at least the names that we have so far, What do you think? Can they be able to, do they meet, do they fit the bill to implement Raila's agenda?
Yes, I'm glad at least there's a woman to start off with. It's also good that, as Churchill says, that the communities are able to see that they will be represented and that they will be able to have something that they can take home. It is definitely, and it definitely was, a campaign strategy. We have seen, for example, Oparanya milk that so much in the Azimio campaigns on the ground. He goes out together with Eugene. He says, I'll be in charge of the money. Eugene will guard it, protect it, you know. And so the Luhya people, the Luhya Western Kenya community feel that they are really part of Azimio. And it's a way of getting them to hopefully then turn out and vote. Because remember that the kingpins, the traditional kingpins of the Western Kenya region are seen as being in Kenya Kwanza. That is Wetangula and Mudavadi. So it was important for him to highlight that. And to highlight because there'd also been a lot of talk around who the running mate was likely to be. And Munya was a strong contender. So it was also important, and it represents a certain region within the Mount Kenya area. So it was also important for people to see that even if Munya did not make it to the table, it is to the final seat of deputy president. He is there. He is at the table. He has got one of the seats. Because remember that even with the Kenya Kwanza side, when they were releasing the name of the running mate of the president, of the deputy president, one of the things that they made sure that they did was to tell us that there were people who also came close, you know. They were close, and, you know, they just missed it by a whisker. So that you see that, yeah, they missed it. So it is important for you to know that they definitely will be front runners come looking for certain slots, because they were already being considered for something pretty big. So it's a good campaign strategy for any side.
All right. And another key part of this particular team was Raila Odinga's running mate, Martha Karua. Apart from the cabinet secretaries, of course, who is this person that Raila Odinga is going to be working very closely with should he be elected on the 9th of August 2022? So let's just get to find out more about Martha Karua. Let's look at her profile.
Born on the 22nd of September 1957 in Kirinyaga district of the former Central Province, Martha Wangari Karua would later study law and get into the civil service as a magistrate, serving in various stations including Makadara, Nakuru and Kibera from 1981 to 1987. She plunged into private legal practice at the time Kenya was a one-party state, with the only political party being the ruling Kenya African National Union, KANU. Karua would make a name as a strong human rights defender, fighting against the awarded Karua the Legal Practitioner's Due Diligence Award. In the 2002 general election, Karua would be among the founders of the National Rainbow Coalition, NARC, the coalition on whose ticket the then opposition leader Mwai Kibaki was elected the third president of the Republic of Kenya. Karua earned her third term to represent Geshogo in Parliament, a seat she would once again retain in the 2007 general election. Kibaki appointed Karua Minister for Water Resources, Management and Development in 2003, where she served up until 2005. She was then transferred to the Ministry of Justice, National Cohesion and Constitutional Affairs in 2005, where she served until 2009. Come the 2012 general election, and Karua unsuccessfully vied for the presidency through her political outfit, NARC Kenya. In 2017, Karua unsuccessfully sought to be the governor of Kirinyaga, losing to Anne Waiguru. On 20th September 2021, a section of leaders from central Kenya named Mother Karua as the interim Mount Kenya Unity Forum convener and tasked her to negotiate with the Kenya Kwanza and Azimio coalitions. But she would finally settle on Azimio and back Raila Odinga's presidential bid. On May 9th, Karua appeared before the 7-member committee of eminent persons and interviewed for the position of Raila Odinga's running mate.
So that is Honorable Martha Karua, who is the running mate for the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance presidential candidate Raila Odinga, of course going to play a very key role in helping Raila Odinga implement his vision for the country that has since been crafted into a 10-point agenda. Of course, officially, he's going to be unveiling his manifesto for the country any minute from now, an event that is currently underway at the Nyayo National Stadium. And you can see there are two sections. There is one area that has been set aside specially for leaders and other invited guests. And of course, a stage that has been set, in front of them for, the speeches and the remarks that will be issued at this particular forum. But outside, earlier we saw the entire Nyayo National Stadium fully packed with residents of Nairobi, and I believe some have come from other parts of the country as well, being there also to witness this particular event. So what we are doing right now is we are anticipating the arrival of Raila Odinga and the running mate Martha Karua and other top officials at the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance before the event officially begins. And of course, we'll be linking up back and forth with our team on the ground, and of course also anticipating to hand over to them once that particular event starts. But in studio, what we have been doing is just to sort of talk about this man, Raila Odinga, and his journey into the presidential race. Of course, specifically the 2022 presidential race, because this is not the first time he's making an attempt to become the country's boss. And what he has been saying on the campaign trail concerning what he wants to do for the country. And I've been having this conversation with a panel of two, a gentleman and a lady, Dr. Churchill Sauki, a political analyst, and I'm having also Milly Luanga, who is a governance expert. And of course, we have talked about the Inua Jamii Pesa Mfukoni program that seeks to see under the Raila government, at least 2 million needy families getting 6,000 per month as a monthly stipend to cushion them from some of the economic shocks and that they are experiencing. And of course also talked about the Kazi kwa Wote initiative that is Raila Odinga's agenda to ensure that he creates opportunities for jobs, and of course invest in sectors such as the Jua Kali and macro and microeconomic stimulation schemes. But also just to go on and talk about this is what ties in very closely with the Kazi kwa Wote is something that Raila Odinga also plans to do. And according to the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance, they dub it the hashtag inawezekana. But if you look at it critically, it means it centers more on what the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance has as part of their youth agenda. And just looking at opportunities that will build capacity among the young people to make them competitive, not just locally but even international space. Hashtag inawezekana, the youth agenda under the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance. A quick comment on this, Churchill?
Yeah, this is important when I look at when they're talking about mindset, scale, funds, technology, and it's like they want to create a holistic enabling environment for young people to do business and to use their skills to scale up doing business. So the implementation here maybe might involve expanding the scope of youth funds to go just beyond mere funds, distribution of funds, to aspects of providing skills. Of course, this kind of programs will also involve education sector. Focusing the education sector into skill acquisition. So I'm sure that there will also be some infusion into how the policy orientation of the policy sector to ensure that some of the technical colleges and the vocational colleges provide the youth with proper skills that will help scale up this kind of hashtag inawezekana.
Where do you think we have failed, Millie, when it comes to implementation of some of the programs to create jobs for the youth? Because when it comes to skill, I want to believe we're doing well. There are so many people who've gone to university, they have the degrees, they have the papers that one would imagine would give them a chance to get jobs. But then how many of them do we have out here who are qualified and they have the necessary academic credentials but do not have anywhere to even secure unemployment? Where do we miss it?
I think we missed the boat quite a while back. And I say this because we noted, and it's been a conversation that has been out there for a number of years now, that we have graduates, we have universities that are churning out graduates that cannot do the basic things. And you'd find someone who tell you that you find someone is a graduate, you employ them, and they cannot do a basic memo to communicate information to their bosses. And this is because of even the sector. Many are the times when people come to you and they'll tell you that please try and get for me a job or get for my child a job. And you look at the course. In the first case, it's a course that you don't understand, so you're not sure exactly which sector this child would be best suited in getting employment. Now, I think that it is good that we would then have skills, because it is important to train. The skill training that hashtag inawezekana would have, should Azimio be the next presidential team, and they implement that if it's in their manifesto, then we have people being trained with skills that would get them out of the market running. You don't come out and then you start saying, okay, I can start with this job, I can do any job for purposes of experience. But you come out and it's clear cut that this is what you're able to do. And I think that is where we were even beginning to go with the CBC education system, where we said we've been churning out people with certain skills, and we've minimized certain skills, yet like now, Kenya is exporting lots of nurses out there. At one point, not many people wanted to train as nurses. They did not think it's one of the hot, in quotes, jobs to go after or careers to build. We know for a fact that Kenya was also at one time really exporting teachers. English teachers, teachers who try and teach basic elementary school, because this was lacking out there, and yet we had the capacity. So, and yet at one point we did not have enough children wanting to go into colleges to take up those same courses. So it's important for us to look at the education system in a holistic way, and to ensure that training, particularly at that level, is geared towards getting someone to already begin to do what they want. We used to go for courses, and when you're in university, you'd already be attached one semester to begin to see which which kind of direction you want to go. Is it you want to go and sit in the bench? You want to become a magistrate? You want to become a judge? Or you want to go to practice? Do you want to go into the corporate sector? So you'd go to all these different sectors and already test it. So as you came out, you already had basic skills, you already had some training, you already had some knowledge in what direction you wanted to pursue in as far as your legal career is concerned. And I think this is what we anticipate for all kinds of courses and for all kinds of trainings, so that people do not get a degree just for purposes of a degree.
Having it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to add on what Millie has said, the other mistake that maybe we may have made was to make the whole population believe that the success of a young person born in Kenya depends on if she gets into the university. And I think that was a big mistake. Any country must have levels where any person at any level where he goes, he's able to succeed. And when you look at advanced countries, they have heavily invested in the technical and vocational colleges, where majority of the population goes, because these are the people who have the skills. The university level, these are very few people go there, because the people who are supposed to be churned out of the university are thinkers. But then, we made everybody go into the university, and then we expected the people who go to the university to have the skills. And that is not necessarily what is supposed to be.
Is what you're doing right now with the TVET and the investment in the TVET institutions a step in the right direction, perhaps?
It is a very good step in the right direction, because we are now making every young person now knows that even if you do not go to the university, when you go into these technical colleges, you will get the skills that can make you do what? That can make you succeed. The next step that we now need to get into is that we now need to make the sectors of the economy appreciate the significance of these graduates. So that we do not just see jobs or even opportunities of business qualifications that are being written down there are, you must have a bachelor degree. If we still go that direction, then we are not changing anything.
And one thing which formed part of what Raila Odinga said when he was talking about this 10-point agenda in December 2021, under that hashtag Inawezekana, was the fact that you see, we need to invest in preparing our youth for the future. He was looking ahead, and as a lecturer, Churchill, probably if you look at the job market and where we are going and how the employment environment is metamorphosizing, what is it that is needed to prepare the youth for that future that even Raila Odinga is describing? What will it take for them to be ready?
Right now, when you look at the future job market is going to be driven by technology. When you look at what is happening in the advanced jurisdictions, there is now more transitioning the workspace is transitioning into virtual. The workspace is transitioning into more automated systems, use of robotics and automation. So these are things that the future of the work is going to be more virtual, is going to be more technologically driven, is going to be more automated, automations. Manufacturing is going to be more involved in terms of computerization and automation. So it means that right now, where we are as is now, we might not necessarily begin to adopt that kind of future, but we can prepare our young people by the requisite skills. Like, for example, if it is issues of technology, are our young people really beginning to visualize themselves in that future? Are we already looking at, if we own businesses, are we already beginning to look at our businesses with that future in mind? If you are in your class, are you already beginning to envision yourself in that future? And sometimes when what some of these things take is how people take themselves, or how students take themselves, how students identify themselves. One of the things that I personally tell my students is that you have to find your niche, or you have to identify yourself in the whole concept of the existence of the earth, in terms of what are you going to contribute in changing in our world. because it is in that kind of imagination or that kind of thinking that will make a typical student have a mindset that, you know what, you are not just being trained to go out there to get a job. You are being trained to become a solution provider to the problems that the society faces.
So they go through the academic journey with a purpose. That this is what they want to do.
Exactly.
This is the solution they want to bring to the society. There's also something else that also is part of this, is something that is called Waste Not a Single Child, really investing in education, because of course we can talk about jobs, we can talk about skills, but let's not be insensitive to the thousands of children who have been locked out of education because of one reason or the other. So the Azimio La Umoja One Kenya Alliance says education is non-negotiable. It's a program that is aggressive on ensuring that all children, not some children, get rightful access to quality education, which is beautiful on paper. Yeah, it's a beautiful promise on paper, but implementation is another issue altogether. But before I get to the implementation part, Millie, what is it that you would term as some of the bottlenecks or challenges that would, block the thousands of children from accessing education even in this century today, even after all the efforts and investment that has been put in place?
The tools that go with education is a problem. And I say this because when I was growing up, and though it was not yesterday, it was not also many centuries ago, we had one book per subject. If it was physics, it was Abbott, for example, that you used. Now you find children have to buy 6-7 books per subject, which is very, very costly on parents. And the books that are targeted, I saw in one of the groups I'm in recently, one of the ladies going up in arms and saying, why is it that we were given set books to buy over the holidays? Then you buy the books, and when the children go to school, you're told, okay, additional books again for you to buy. And at the end of the year, you will find that the child will tell you there are certain books that they never even opened. And yet the parents are required to buy these books. Now look at even the uniform. When we were growing up, when I was growing up, going to school, my shoes were made by the local cobbler because he used material that was long lasting. And my parents knew that if he made that shoe, unless my feet grew suddenly, they would fit me for the entire year. And if there was a problem, they could be mended, and it was cost effective. Now you're told you can only go and buy butter bullets, which go for 3,000. Imagine if someone is earning the minimum salary, which is about 13,000 right now. That's a good percentage of your salary that is to go on shoes alone. You have not talked about the uniform and the other things that go with it. So there's a lot that we need to look at, including schools insisting that you must go and pick uniform and books or whatever from certain places only, whereas you could possibly be able to have gotten these things from a different vendor at a more affordable cost. So these are the things that are making school so expensive and making education unaffordable or unattainable to all the children. Because yes, you will go and pay, and it is easy to pay some small fee to support somebody if you have the means. But you will still find that that child you paid fees for is not going to school, because the additional things that the parent has to meet in order for that child to be accepted in school is beyond them. And the parent cannot approach you because they've already approached you for the fee. They feel they're embarrassed to come again for the additional costs. So these costs to education need to be managed. The government needs to manage it, and I hope that whichever government or next administration that will come in will look at that. It's not just about making schools accessible. Now again, in the 4 years, and you find that in developed countries as well, that one of the things you need to prove when you're going to enroll your child in school is that you live within the locality. This business of a child waking up at 4 because they need to go across town to go to a school at the other end because there are no good schools impacts on education standard that child is able to attain. It's very different for that child as compared to the child who's walking 15 minutes to school and then walking back. the amount of time they're able to dedicate to education. There are so many things that you need to look at. Each estate used to have at least 2 public schools. At least 2 public schools, and maybe a private school run by missionaries would be an addition. Now you find that that is not there, and that impacts on a child's ability to get that education. So there's need for us to look at the entire education sector and be able to address it in a realistic manner, and from the point of view not of making money or creating opportunity for somebody to sell textbooks or sell uniform, but from the opportunity of making sure that every child will be able to learn. One book, one good textbook per subject really is enough. Is enough with the other additional things that maybe if you have to add, there would be revision books, you know. Those revision books would be an additional if your parent was able to. And those were things you could even share amongst yourselves as a group. Those are the things that will make education affordable.
All right. And because of all that you've said, Millie, there are thousands of children who've been locked out of education. And this is what governments that have come even before the Jubilee government have tried to solve. Remember in 2002, when Kibaki took over power, there was the free primary education that was introduced. We also had, under the Jubilee government, there was the free secondary school education that was introduced. We've had the free textbook program to avail textbooks that Millie here is really concerned about. We've seen programs such as the school feeding program that the government has introduced to ensure that learners are not locked out of the education system. But yet as late as, recently when the Form 1s were reporting to school, even after the introduction of the 100% transition program that gave an opportunity for every learner to transition to secondary school, whether you scored high marks or not, and whether you had school fees or not. We ran several stories here as KBC Channel 1 of students who had performed very well but could not afford school fees. School fees was a big cry for parents and caregivers across the country. Where have we failed? And if Raila Odinga has this as his vision to ensure that every learner has access to education, Churchill, what will he have to do different?
I think it's a gradual process in terms of, because you remember this is a heavy investment. Also, per child, education is not cheap. It involves a lot of heavy investment by government. And I think maybe as time goes by, it might be important maybe for government to consider continually subsidizing the costs for people. Because you see, the parent also must somehow find ways of cushioning. It's a win-win situation for both government and the guardians. So there might be need to sort of continue with the subsidy, while at the same time trying to block the loopholes that the head teachers or the BOMs use to manipulate parents to pay more money that is not required. Because I think this is something that has been happening, especially when the Form 1s are coming. You find BOMs put school fees or they add fees that and you see, because parents are helpless, they end up paying these things. So filling those loopholes will be important. Maybe the other thing will be dealing with the issue of student-teacher ratio and infrastructure. The way in which you can help have a learner-centric education system is by ensuring that the teacher-student ratio is good and also proper infrastructure is available.
All right. And, I agree with you, Millie. This thing of telling parents, go to a specific bookshop, that atlas, where just buy it in that bookshop. Atlas is atlas, dictionary is dictionary. But you have to go to that bookshop. This one has to stop. Let's cross over to Nyayo National Stadium and, get a feel of what is happening on the ground from my colleague Gladys Mungai. You can see already the venue is fully packed with guests and leaders from the Azimio La Umoja One Kenya Alliance. Let's just listen into what is happening right now. Gladys, what is it that you have for us? What's the latest?
to you, Safin. We are yet again coming to you live from the Nyayo Stadium in Nairobi County, where the launch of Azimio la Umoja Coalition Political Party Manifesto is set to be launched here any moment from now. This being a day and a program with full entry in regards to what is going to be launched at Azimio la Umoja Coalition Political Party Manifesto. Remember, it's a manifesto with at least key 10 key points agenda. And after speaking to a variety of leaders, we now want to hear from Wananchi. And with me here are two gentlemen who have portraits of Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta. If you may just lift that up a little, yours too. I'm going to speak to one of them. I understand they are brothers. I want to understand what inspired this particular portrait. Speak to our viewers. Begin by introducing yourself and tell us why are you here and why the handshake portrait.
Yes, my name is Gekonyo Maina. I'm a fine artist, and I felt it would be important for me to do a portrait of the handshake between President Kenyatta and Honorable Raila Odinga, as this was one of a very historic moment, and that was the reason. So I've been looking for the opportunity to present it to him as a gift. Yes, that's...
There are various details on this particular portrait. Just keep on lifting up. Let us face the cameras. The camera is on this side. Yeah, just like that. And I understand there is a map of Kenya and a dove. And at the dove's head, we have the hands sort of doing the handshake. So what is the inspiration behind this particular kind of portrait?
Well, what I did is make the composition a little more interesting by creating the impression of the handshake. The handshake being the reason why we got peace. After, if you look at this portrait, in the background where you see the map of Kenya, there's an area where you see total darkness. And that is symbolic of the situation we are in before the handshake. And if you look further down, you see like, like the country is a ban. And so that handshake is what symbolizes the peace that came thereafter. And so the handshake, the dove, the white dove, which symbolically represents peace, is symbolized by the handshake. And the head of the handshake, the head of the dove.
Thank you very much for that particular explanation. Now let me hear from the brother. Please, if you can come here. Just a minute, please. This way. Please, just come here. You can hold it for him. Yes. So, this other one is about a portrait of
Nelson Mandela,
former president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela. Right. So, why Nelson Mandela?
Well, I was looking at Honorable Raila Odinga being a very what word can I use? He has gone through the kind of stages that Nelson Mandela went through, from fighting for their independence in South Africa, when he came from Robben Island, and later on as president, and bigger than life. So I felt this would be a good gift also for Honorable Raila, because this for him is the Mandela moment, and that's the reason why I wanted to also present this portrait.
Thank you for these particular portraits. They are indeed inspirational. Thank you very much. May may you get some time to give them to President Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. Dear viewers, different political leaders keep making their way into the Nyayo Stadium, and that explains the commotion here. We've just had the former governor of Nairobi County, that is Honorable Mike Mbuvi Sonko, just making his way into this particular stadium for that particular launch. I'll now seek to speak to a few Kenyans on their take in regards to this particular launch of this manifesto. Habari yako, mambo, how are you? We are live on KBC. I want to get hisia zako kuhusiana na hii manifesto ya Azimio.
Ya Azimio, ningependa baba, mimi naitwa Benson Madara. Ningependa baba aangalie vijana wa kulima wadogo kama sisi ambao ni hatujiwezi. Tungependa baba aweze kuangalia maneno ya vijana. Sina manifesto wengine.
Naam, asante sana. Pengine nizungumze na kijana mwingine hapa, na unafahamu kwamba vijana ni mojawapo ya nguzo muhimu katika taifa la Kenya. Umefika hapa katika uwanja ama uga wa Nyayo. Lengo lako kufika hapa pengine ni lipi na unatazamia yapi kutokana na manifesto ya leo?
Kulingana na manifesto ya leo, mimi nimefurahi sana. Sawa. Jina zangu, kulingana jina yangu, Dr. Steven Okodomindo. Mimi mtoto wa Siaya, Game Kambare. Lakini leo nimeacha kazi yangu nifiki hapa juu kulingana na watu na kumati ya watu. Nimefurahia sana. Kama tumengoja Raila Amolo Odinga kuja hapa na Martha Karua, tuwakaribishe kulingana na hii uchaguzi na kuja. Tuwapee kitu na roho safi na watangaze ule mtu ambaye tunataka na mtu tunapenda ni Raila Amolo Odinga na Martha Karua. Ama nete jeshi. Jeshi jibi. Jeshi tialala.
Na jeshi njoo hapa kama mnavyojiita. Angalia huku, angalie kamera ya kidogo. Tueleze watazamaji, wewe ukiwa mojawapo ya vijana ambao pengine mmefika hapa, matarajio yako ni yapi?
Kwa majina mimi naitwa Collins Otieno. Mimi matarajio yangu kwa vijana, ningetaka Raila tutengenezee hata kama ni biashara maboyboy, tuache kunyonga watu ili tupate kazi. Tukipata kazi hatutanyonga mtu, hatutaibia mtu. Na kwa mabuda wenye wanafanya jua kali pia waone hapo, itakuwa bie. Mimi ningeshukuru tu kwa hiyo tu. Ya.
Kumekuwepo na hisia kwamba gharama ya maisha imepanda sana. Pengine mna matarajio yapi kutokana na manifesto ya leo?
Tunataka sisi kama watu wa Azimio, we have so many experience. Na experience yote iko kwa jua kali. Na jua kali wanaumia, juu wale wamemaliza form 4 university wanaangalia na hawana kazi. So we have the right to give them the job, for them to get the experience, alafu wapate ile kazi, tuandike, wachunge familia yao. So tulikuwa tunapenda sana wakuwe na hiyo kwa roho yao, na sisi tukue na amani kulingana na sekta ya amani yote watu tumekuwa nayo hapa. Mimi naomba hiyo kitu pekee yake.
Thank you. Safin, those are some sentiments from a section of the youth at Nyayo Stadium affiliated to Azimio la Umoja. I want to speak to the final one. Karibu sana. Nafahamu kwamba ulipenda kuzungumza sana kuhusiana na siku ya leo. Kwa nini uko hapa leo?
Leo niko hapa kuja kuona rais wetu wa 5 ambao ni Raila Amolo Odinga. Huyu ni kiongozi mwenye analeta amani sana. Ni kiongozi amefanya jambo lingine yenye Wakenya wako wanatarajia. Alileta handshake na rais wetu Rais Honorable Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Na akaleta amani. Sasa tuko na amani, sasa tunaweza enda Central tuombe maji. Wa Central wanakuja huku Nyanza wanaomba maji. So sina shukuru sana. Mimi nimetoka huko Makadara nikuja nione Raila. Na tuambie waheshimiwa wetu, wa MP wetu shida zetu ambao tunapitia. Sisi kama wakazi wa Nairobi hapa Makadara.
Tuzungumzie changamoto za vijana hasa kuhusiana na masuala ya kazi.
Masuala ya kazi iko kila mpande pote. Na hiyo ndio ni main agenda. Kila kiongozi mwenye anakuja lazima hiyo ndio anaongeleanga. Lakini kuna viongozi wengine wanatenda wanasema na watendi. Lakini Raila Amolo Odinga penye alikuwa prime minister tuliona manufaa yake. Marais wengine ndio hatuwezi ongelea watu, lakini kuna wengine baadhi ya viongozi Kuna wengine wanasema tu tunafanya hivi ili tu mambo na siasa. Raila number 1. Raila alipokuwa kwa ministry aliperform. Kiongozi mwingine ambao ni deputy president huyu wetu ambao ako sasa Ruto, ministry yote yenye amekuwa ameiba.
Thank you. Those are some sentiments from a section of the youth raising their concerns in regards to the expectation of today's manifesto at Nyayo Stadium in Nairobi. The Azimio la Umoja coalition is set to launch their manifesto. On my right, you can see some fans, with a bit of orange. Your banner, please. It's written Friends of Baba and Raila the 5th. If we could speak to you this evening, we've seen you doing a variety of entertainment here at Nyayo Stadium. Speak to us about today's event and please begin. Nisa, unaweza kuzungumza kwa Kiswahili. Anza na majina yako mawili alafu tupe hisia zako kuhusiana na siku ya leo.
Jina langu kamili ni Joseph Adongo. Natoka Kajiado County. Jina hili linajulikana Jaga Kimba. Sasa mimi nimefurahia kuja hapa baba asome manifesto yake. Ile manifesto akatangazia watu iwe ni ya ukweli tu ya mwananchi, kama ile baba care na masomo amesema itakuwa bure mpaka university, itakuwa bure, itakuwa nafuu kwa mwananchi wa kawaida. Sisi tunapenda baba, sisi ni marafiki wa baba na hatuwezi wacha baba. Tupiganie baba tukomboe.
Mzee, kumekuwepo na changamoto na hisia mseto miongoni mwa Wakenya kuhusiana na pengine deni la taifa na gharama ya juu ya maisha. Pengine unatarajia kusikia nini kuhusiana na pengine tatizo hili?
Kwa gharama ya maisha, tunajua tukiwa na baba gharama ya maisha itakuwa chini. Kulingana vile baba tunajua mambo yake inakuanga ya ukweli. Ni vile hajaipata nafasi kama huo ambapo atapata wakati huu, ambapo akiingia kila kitu kitakuwa sawa, ambapo hatutakuwa na shida, gharama itakuwa nafuu, unga itarudi chini, kila kitu itarudi kwa chini.
Thank you very much. Safin, you've heard them sentiments from a section of Kenyans at the Nyayo Stadium. I believe you are accompanied by two young people. If you could please speak to KBC Channel 1. We are live. I saw you do some dances here. I want to believe they are in support of Azimio la Umoja. Yeah, like that would rightly be it, because I want to believe you are here because of your expectation towards today's day. It is a big day. Being the young people, we have our expectations. When you look up to our leaders, probably you could tell us, what do you expect to hear from today's Raila Odinga speech?
Okay, I'm Duncan, known as Mtoto wa Raila. We are here at Nyayo Stadium to receive Baba. And we are here today expecting more from Baba. As we know, Baba has been frontline fighting for the Kenyans. Now we think this is now the chance for Baba to come and help us. This country needs somebody who is strong like Baba. And with Baba, we believe everything is going to be okay. And Baba is the only option and the better option. Thank you.
Baba is the right option, like they're saying, but that is just their comment. And that particular statement will either be approved on the 9th of August elections. And so we await to see. It is 6:40 in the evening, 1840. And President, or rather opposition leader Raila Odinga was expected at the Nyayo Stadium at 6:30. He's yet to make his way here. This particular event has been scheduled to start at 7. And so we await to get to understand the time he's getting to get to the venue and bring that particular arrival live to you in our studios. Matter security have been beefed up at Nyayo Stadium, and fans continue streaming in at Nyayo Stadium to get to hear what Raila Odinga has to say. I want to see if I can speak to Honorable TJ Kajwang.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We are live. Please. This is not Ramogi. This is KBC Channel 1.
Oh, KBC.
Your national broadcaster. We want to hear your sentiments in regards to today's event. Kindly. And please begin by introducing yourself to our viewers.
My name is TJ Kajwang, member for Waraka.
this is the most exciting moment that we have had through these campaigns, because we are now beginning to tell Kenyans exactly, we are putting a pen into paper, exactly what we are going to do in the Raila's administration. All those things we have said, we are now committing ourselves to pen and paper, and Wananchi can hold us accountable to the things we'll do. A manifesto is the basic document by which an administration influences policies and their laws. So you can imagine if we are saying that there will be social justice, you will know that we are going to pass the constitution within 100 days. If we say we are going to do Baba Care, or if we say that we are going to work on alleviating plights of the poor people, in the first 3 months, you will see laws which will develop that will achieve that.
TJ, of the issues of concern to Kenyans is the issue of the debt of the country and the high cost of living. Please speak to us about that.
Well, about the debt of the country, I think it is misconceived. As you know, there is the Constitution, and then there is an Act of Parliament which has put a ceiling. And not ever, even in the worst of Uhuru's administration, have we increased the debt ceiling. The question is usually how we can always balance that debt against our revenue. Look, loan is the only way to do business. If you don't have a loan, I don't know whether you don't have a loan, but if you don't have M-Shwari, you can't call. So loans is how to do business. The only thing is how do you balance your loans against your revenue. But the other question was what?
The issue of cost of living.
Yes, cost of living now, that one is terrible. These are my people.
Yeah.
Cost of living is just too much. Nobody can afford to put food on the table. Cost of unga, staple food, rice and beans and managu. You know, leave alone all those things like meat and all those things that the rich enjoy. The little things, the nyoyo you put on the table is just overbearing, the cooking fat. And so we have committed ourselves that this administration, immediately we take over, the first thing would be how do we reduce cost of basic food stuffs that Wananchi can, and it can be done. What you need to do is to temper costs of production, yes, the manufacturing costs or taxation, just a little bit to give people on the short term relief, but on the long term you have to increase your productivity in terms of manufacturing business.
Lastly, Mheshimiwa, let's talk about Raila Odinga's presidency. This is the 5th time he will be seeking to clinch the presidency. And somebody would be asking, this has been termed as a Mandela moment. So why should we or Kenyans elect Raila Odinga and not any other presidential candidate?
I'm so excited. As you know, I'm the Chief Justice of the People's President. So this is something that makes a Kenyan who wants to move with development shed a tear. Because we have waited for this moment since independence. And we have had several epochs of liberation. We have had liberation from colonizers. Then we have had liberation that fought in 1990 from internal dictatorship. Now we must move to economic emancipation. So this is what makes it special, that Kenya can now go the Singapore way. Kenya can now go Dubai way in a short period of time. That is it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There you have it, our dear viewers. That is Ruaraka Member of Parliament, Honorable TJ Kajwang, speaking to us about the manifesto, his expectations, and why Kenyans ought to elect an Odinga presidency. We have heard from various Kenyans who have converged here at Nyayo Stadium in regards to the expectation in regards to this particular day. I'll now be handing you over back to the studio, Safin, so that you can continue with the interview at the broadcasting house. At the moment, anytime there is development from this particular venue, we shall be getting it right from here. And I'll hand you over back to you, Safin.
Thank you so much, Gladys Mungai, reporting to us live from Nyayo National Stadium right here in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. Of course, what you've seen there is the event already picking up as leaders continue to troop into the venue that has been set aside for the launch of the manifesto by the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance. So any minute from now, Raila Odinga and his running mate Martha Karua are also going to be making their way to the venue. And of course, we expect that any moment from now, the event will officially begin. But just what we've gathered from the ground are just expectations from Kenyans and leaders alike on what they expect Raila Odinga to focus on as part of his agenda for the country. Some talking about the high cost of living. Others are talking about, focus to be put on improving the economy. And of course, others also talking about addressing the youth unemployment issue as part of the issues that they want Raila Odinga to address if he succeeds in his State House bid. And of course, we'll be getting back to Nyayo National Stadium to pick up more on what is happening. But in studio, we have been discussing, what Raila Odinga has been passionate about during his campaigns. And this centers around his 10-point agenda for the country. Of course, there could be slight adjustments on this in the official manifesto, but one thing we are sure about is that it's not going to go too far from what he has been talking about in his campaigns. I just want us to take you back a little bit to what he said as late as yesterday. Probably this could give you a sneak peek on what is contained in Raila Odinga's contract with Kenyans. And the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance presidential candidate Raila Odinga says his manifesto will detail how he intends to tackle illiteracy, disease and poverty, the three main challenges he feels are derailing Kenya's development. And of course, Raila, who is set to be launching his coalition vision today, was speaking on Sunday yesterday during a series of rallies that he held in Nakuru County. I just want us to, listen into what he said yesterday in that Nakuru campaign rally, so that we can get to hear more on what Raila plans. But you can see there quite a joyous moment for the supporters of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance. Song and dance already coloring this particular event. Helen Mtawali, the legendary musician, and other musicians there making sure that they keep the guests busy as they wait for Raila Odinga and his colleagues in the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance. Of course, this is not the first time that Raila Odinga is attempting to become the country's president. So many are really expecting, have high expectations about what he has to say today, why he feels he is the best man to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta. Of course, later on, we also anticipate that the Kenya Kwanza Alliance will also be, letting the country know when they are set to launch their own manifesto. Then Kenyans can have a chance to compare. But remember, we also have other candidates who were cleared by IEBC, so we expect also Wahiga Mwaura, another aspirant who was cleared, also to be setting his agenda for the country. Let's just listen into what Raila Odinga said yesterday in Nakuru County, a day before he launched his manifesto.
Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party flag bearer Raila Odinga kicked off his presidential bid campaigns at Mazembe grounds in Nakuru County, hours after being cleared to seek the country's top seat. Raila will be on the ballot for the 5th time, used the platform to explain the roadmap the coalition party will adopt to achieve economic revolution in the country if elected.
Kesho tutazindua manifesto ya Azimio ambayo itaonyesha kirasmi hatua ambayo tutachukua kufufua uchumi wa taifa la Kenya. Tulisema adui iko 3: ugonjwa, ujinga na umaskini.
An enhanced healthcare program and social protection kitty for the vulnerable members of the society are some of the pledges made by the former premier and his running mate Martha Karua.
Tunaleta vile vile ile kazi mtaani kwa vijana ambao hawana kazi, na tutajenga viwanda ili vijana wapate ajira sawa sawa.
Leaders accompanying Raila Odinga described him as the true patriot among the presidential candidates.
Tukiona Mheshimiwa Raila hapa na Mheshimiwa Martha Karua wanararua umaskini yote, wanararua ufisadi yote.
Wamama muelewe, huyu ni mama kama nyinyi. Shida zenu hatutasahau. Wazee muelewe, sisi ndio tunamchunga. Kwa hivyo nikiwa hapo na baba iko hapo, shida zenu hatuwezi sahau.
Earlier in the day, the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party also held a rally at Undugu grounds in Lang'ata constituency.
Right, so this is the former Premier Raila Odinga at a campaign rally in Nakuru County that he led yesterday. This came just moments after he had been cleared by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to vie for the country's top seat. But, you know, Churchill and Millie, what stands out is what he said about his plan to tackle illiteracy, disease, and poverty. I want to believe we were there when our founding fathers said that this was the same vision that they had for the country. Are we still there, Churchill?
It's always a work in progress for any country.
Yeah.
Of course, it is important that the development agenda of any country is anchored upon those three key pillars, upon which now other aspects of the agenda come in. But for any country, it's always a work in progress. Even if we develop, we will always still want to fight these things. Yeah.
Millie, your body language encouraged me. I was surprised that we are still there, close to 60 years down the line. Poverty, illiteracy, disease.
Yes, but we've made strides because at one point in Kenya, the number of people with university degrees were few. It was something elitist to go to university. Now we have almost everybody going to university. So education is becoming more and more real by the day. Much as, yes, we've just said now there are still hurdles to achieving education, but it's becoming more real by the day. So just as Churchill is saying that, yes, there's progress that has been made, but there's still more to be done. Because remember that the population continues to grow every time, and addressing the needs of these growing populations, and without proper planning, you may sometimes miss the target. But what I also found interesting in that clip is the changes, much as we're talking about changes, even in education sector, that this is Raila Amolo Odinga in central Kenya, in the places that people, in regions that people said he would not be able to climb, and he had a massive crowd there. So there's a lot of potential for change in everything, including even with the realization of education and making sure that we have everybody having the right education that is best for them, best suited to their skills.
Let's talk about health. And at this point, I'd like to introduce what the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya terms as Baba Care. Yeah, Baba Care, an interesting, wording there.